They had us fooled, they had us wrapped around the soft focus lens of their Instagram perfect. Lives wrapped in pastel wardrobes and playful tweets. Pretending to be the couple next door but make it Hollywood, and for years we bought at the jokes. The smiles, the ice cream photos, the interviews that felt like banter wrapped in gold. And we didn't question it, we didn't see what was hiding beneath the surface, because why would we? These were the good ones. The funny ones, the harmless ones. Right, but then the silence came, and not the peaceful kind, the dangerous kind, the kind of silence that follows a storm, and for a moment, no one knew what to say, because how do you explain that the people you once adored may have been the very architects of something dark, of something cold, of something strategic and cruel? Because while Blake and Ryan posted selfies, while they shared jokes about parenting and pancakes, creators were vanishing one by one, their videos gone, their voices dimmed, flagged, demonetized, erased, not with open legal battles, but with quiet, behind-the-scenes pressure. And now, we know it wasn't a glitch, it wasn't random. It was planned, it was tracked, it was funded, and it was happening for years. Creators speaking the truth buried by a machine designed to look invisible, lawyers, PR, firms, platforms, all spinning the wheel to protect a billion-dollar image, built on smiles and silence. And now the mask has slipped, the leaks are pouring, the court filings are surfacing. The subpoenas are unsealed and the receipts are out in the open, and it's worse than we ever imagined, because it wasn't just about suppressing criticism. It was about rewriting reality, about punishing dissent, about telling creators we're watching you and you're next. But the internet doesn't stay quiet for long. The whispers became threads, the threads became timelines, and the timelines became a movement, and now the very platform they tried to control is rising up against them. And the couple who once made us laugh is being laughed at in a way they never saw coming, because their silence isn't charming anymore, it's damning, because they're carefully curated. Chaos now looks like calculation, and the creators they tried to bury are the ones lighting the match, setting fire to the empire of artifice. Brick by pastel brick, and the world is watching. The hashtags are rising, the legal walls are cracking, and for the first time in a long time they don't have control of the narrative anymore. And maybe they thought they'd win, maybe they thought they'd silence everyone, maybe they thought this would blow over, but it didn't. And it won't, and now there's only one question left, echoing through every upload, every breakdown, every broken brand deal. They thought it was over, they thought the silence would last forever, they thought no one would dare speak again after the subpoenas, the legal threats, the behind closed door deals. But then something happened. Something shifted, and suddenly the internet was no longer afraid. Suddenly creators who had been whispering in private were screaming in public, because the truth had become too loud to ignore, and now the spotlight was turned directly back toward Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. The couple once seen as Hollywood's golden charm now looked eerily more like the architects of something deeply sinister, because what started as a few mysterious takedowns and silence from a few creators had grown into a movement of resistance. One by one they began coming forward, small creators, medium channels, even former collaborators who had once been paid off or pressured to stay quiet, all began dropping breadcrumbs, and those breadcrumbs began forming a trail, and that trail led directly back to the two people who had built a brand on pastel photo ops and curated couples therapy jokes. But behind the walls, behind the agents, the publicists, the team of attorneys, a rot was growing, and people could finally smell it. It all started when one creator released a redacted screenshot. At first, it didn't seem like much, just a reference to a takedown order, but the font, the formatting, the sender's email matched an earlier document already confirmed to have come from Ryan's legal team. And then another file dropped, and another, until a mosaic formed, and what it revealed was chilling: an entire legal strategy crafted around discrediting specific creators, labeling them as mentally unstable, untrustworthy, or part of a conspiracy just for speaking out. And worse, the emails hinted that Blake herself may have personally signed off on certain efforts, even suggesting edits to the legal language before they were submitted. And yet, even as this blew up on social media with hashtags like #BlakeGate and #PastelPoison trending for days, the couple said nothing. They continued posting their cute vacation photos, their ice cream selfies, their soft focus BTS shots from film sets, as if the world wasn't unraveling around them. But the silence this time wasn't power, it was panic, because this time the creators had receipts, not just theories, not just feelings, actual receipts, court dates, screenshots, metadata, and above all, timing. The exact moment everything flipped was when a former intern from a boutique PR firm anonymously leaked a single line from a pitch email dated almost a year earlier. The subject line read, quote, "Emergency damage control for Blake's smear campaign." Escalation in that phrase smear campaign was like blood in the water. Suddenly, reporters who had been ignoring the story began circling. Lawyers from other cases started referencing it. Creators who had been silent out of fear began speaking with legal counsel and forming alliances, and one by one the dominoes began to fall. A former executive from a mid-tier agency gave a recorded deposition, saying they were instructed to, quote, push back on the narrative through organic influencers. A lawyer close to the Baldoni case hinted that discovery evidence included communication logs that overlapped with the exact dates of the most aggressive takedowns on YouTube, and perhaps most damning of all, a whistleblower from the very team that handled Ryan and Blake's brand partnerships released a full unredacted internal memo detailing how creators who posted critical content were flagged with red ratings on a tracking document and monitored weekly for engagement impact. So now the question wasn't if the couple knew about the felt manipulative. Suddenly, the quiet felt like guilt, and in the court of public opinion, that silence began to echo louder than any statement could. And that's when the late-night bombshell dropped, because an unexpected motion was filed under seal in Los Angeles Superior Court, and when the docket number leaked online, it matched the very case everyone suspected had been quietly brewing for months, the one with multiple sealed plaintiffs and a known connection to several creator takedowns. And suddenly, the silence was shattered again, and the phrase that exploded across Twitter threads and reaction videos was simple, devastating, and unstoppable. What no one expected was how fast it would spiral, how fast the carefully protected image of America's favorite couple would begin to fracture. Because after the leak of that docket number, investigators online went to work within minutes. Legal sleuths cross-referenced filing dates against known cases, and suddenly a theory solidified that this wasn't just a civil motion, this was something bigger, possibly criminal. And that word spread like wildfire. Criminal, because suddenly everything changed. This wasn't just about creator drama or defamation lawsuits anymore. It was about intent, about cover-ups and interference. And that's when one brave journalist from an independent media watchdog site dropped a story that shook everything they claimed they'd spoken with a former legal assistant who worked briefly under the firm tied to the Reynolds family office. And what they described was damning internal communications between representatives discussing what to do if, quote, this creator thing keeps growing, end quote, including mentions of coercive NDAs and threats of contract terminations for creators who had brand affiliations with Ryan's companies. And once that story hit, creators started checking their inboxes, digging through old correspondence, and sure enough, the patterns were there. The strange sponsorship withdrawals, the sudden ad cuts, the emails implying they had crossed an invisible line. And then came the voice memo, a 42-second audio clip posted anonymously featuring a female voice many claim sounds eerily like Blake herself, though experts are still analyzing the recording. But what she said sent the internet into a frenzy. She's allegedly heard saying, quote, I don't care if they have receipts. We have lawyers, we outlast them like we always do, end quote. And suddenly the veil was lifted, the warmth, the relatability, the curated imperfection. It all began to rot under the weight of what many now believed was a cold, calculated media strategy. And that's when creators began dropping timelines. Not one, not two, but entire video exposes using metadata side by side with court documents to outline how their takedowns coincided with known legal movements tied to Blake and Ryan. And the patterns were undeniable, coordinated timeframes, coordinated actions, and all of it pointed to a strategy, not a coincidence. And while Ryan kept tweeting jokes like nothing had happened, like the internet wasn't crumbling beneath him, creators began to strike back, directly calling him out for his silence, for hiding behind humor. And when one large commentary channel posted a breakdown titled, quote, The Reynolds Strategy is Unraveling, end quote, it hit 5 million views in a day. And the comments were brutal, not just toward the couple, but toward every influencer, every journalist, every celebrity who had ever enabled them without question. And that backlash wasn't theoretical, it was financial. Two massive brand partners quietly removed recent collaborations with both Blake and Ryan, One skincare brand deleted an entire ad series from their website, while a streaming platform removed a featured banner promoting Ryan's latest project. No statement, no warning, just erased, and the message was clear: we don't want the smoke. And then came the unexpected twist. A lawyer, representing one of the anonymous creators, finally spoke publicly in a live stream, and what they said sent shockwaves through both the legal and entertainment world. They claimed the evidence their client had provided wasn't just screenshots or DMs, but actual signed correspondence and invoice trails connecting Suppression efforts directly to a media firm tied to Blake and Ryan's team, and even more shocking, that they had been subpoenaed to testify in a related investigation involving deceptive online interference and public image manipulation, a case they hinted could go federal if enough connections are proven. And with that confirmation, rumors that had been floating for weeks suddenly felt very real and very dangerous, and all the while Blake and Ryan remained silent, posting nothing, removing nothing, standing still as the hurricane circled closer. And now even longtime defenders in the entertainment press were starting to turn. One headline read, quote, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds perfect brand is cracking and it's their own fault, end quote. And another more brutal quote, the couple that once made us believe in Hollywood fairy tales may have been writing a horror story all along, end quote. And then came the biggest shock yet, because while the internet was still dissecting the leaked audio and redacted subpoenas, a single unexpected figure re-entered the chat. Justin Baldoni, his legal team, filed an emergency petition to unseal related records, and in the petition they alleged their own case had been tainted by outside legal pressure, believed to be linked to the very same media suppression campaign being uncovered by creators. And that's when all hell broke loose. The court had to issue a formal statement acknowledging the petition, and once that hit the public record, the media had no choice but to cover it. Creators weren't just speaking out anymore, they were being validated by actual legal movements, and it was clear this story was no longer fringe, no longer niche. It was the start of a reckoning, and still no word from Blake and Ryan as their names trended across every platform, as parody accounts mocked their silence, as creators unveiled more receipts, as Reddit threads broke every timeline down to the hour. And then someone unearthed a years-old clip from an interview where Blake had laughed about, quote, having a team to handle bad internet energy, end quote. And that clip was the match to the gasoline, because now everyone saw it not as a joke but as a confession, and the comment sections turned savage, accusing her of orchestrating a war against free speech, against creators, against the very platforms that helped make her brand. And that's when someone scrawled it across a subway wall in New York City in black spray paint, 6 words, tall letters, raw and angry. By now, the internet was no longer asking if it was true, they were demanding consequences, demanding apologies, demanding accountability. But what they got instead was silence, a silence so loud it echoed through every timeline and comment section. And the more Blake and Ryan refused to speak, the more people spoke for them. Theories exploded, videos dissecting every gesture, every tweet from the past 3 years, suddenly seen through a sinister lens. And that's when something truly unexpected happened. A mid-sized creator, one who had been silent for months, dropped a video simply titled The Call, and it hit like a meteor. Within the first 10 minutes, she revealed something the community had only speculated about. She claimed she'd received a phone call last year from a law firm representing Blake's team, warning her not to proceed with a certain video, even though that video was based on already public documents. And here's the kicker, she recorded it, the entire phone call. And while she distorted the voice to avoid violating terms, the implication was unmistakable threats, veiled and cold, delivered with eerie corporate detachment. And then she dropped the real hammer, a screen recording of her email inbox with timestamps and sender info, showing a follow-up message from that same firm stating in writing that if she moved forward with her planned upload, quote, the consequences could be severe, end quote. And once that hit the internet, it confirmed what everyone feared. This wasn't about feelings or opinions, this was about control. Corporate control, legal intimidation, and image manipulation at the highest level. And the video exploded millions of views overnight. A trending hashtag the call with Blake, started gaining traction, and within hours more creators started checking their inboxes again, and suddenly a pattern emerged, a web of emails from similarly worded law firms sent within similar timeframes, all encouraging creators to take down or delay content, using terms like defamation and interference. And here's the thing, these creators weren't posting false information, they were posting sourced timelines, legal filings, and documented brand behavior. And now those same creators began uploading side-by-side breakdowns, not only exposing the pattern but connecting the law firms to the same PR group that had long been rumored to manage parts of the Reynolds Lively brand strategy. And that was the moment the public narrative turned. It was no longer about whether Blake and Ryan were complicit, it was about how deep it went and just how many people helped keep the machine running. And then it happened again. A former assistant posted a tweet that blew up in real time, no name, just a screenshot from a company Slack message that read, quote, "Make sure all the Reynolds Lively tags are flagged for deletion or delay. On press pickups, we don't want anything slipping before the premiere," and that line before the premiere was damning, because it confirmed what many already believed, that major studios and outlets had coordinated silence in order to protect film launches and brand deals, and the backlash with swift boycott calls began trending for multiple upcoming projects' creators. Project, a multi-part series that would include never-before-seen communications from creators, brand reps, and legal counsel. Outlaw just stillness, and maybe they thought it would blow over, maybe they believed they could outweigh the storm, but as more creators kept coming forward, as whistleblowers leaked more files, as hashtags surged across every platform, the world kept asking the same thing again and again, louder and louder, until it felt less like a question and more like a reckoning. The unraveling wasn't just public now, it was legal. It wasn't just trending, it was being recorded on dockets. Next, no matter how many apologies or denials or rebrand attempts are launched, the internet never forgets. It remembers the fear, the takedowns, the warnings whispered behind locked accounts. It remembers who stood up and who stayed silent, and most of all, it remembers how they laughed while creators were erased, laughed while the system crushed dissent, laughed as if they were above it all. But now the world is watching, the game is over, and the punchline has changed, because no matter how much power you hold, no matter how perfect the pastel image, one truth remains. The truth always leaks, it breaks through the algorithm, it finds the cracks in your strategy, and when it does, it doesn't just whisper, it roars. And as the roar echoes through every corner of the internet, there's only one question left hanging in the air as the silence finally turns back on them.